Welcome to Introduction to Game Development Workshop. First we will start by showing up the game that we will be working on today. This is the user interface. You can select a character, then move, jump, attack. You can collect the fruit and hit the tree, so give you more fruits. And also it might give you a rotten fruit that will attack you. So you need to be careful. You can kill enemies by jump over them or attack them with a rod. You can use the fruit as a donation to give you hard point. There's also a timer that you will die when the timer reaches 0. The enemies also can eat the fruit. That's the game. It's very simple. The total game took around 60 hours to finish. Before you start to make a game, generally you will do a prototype to understand the basics idea. Now I will show you a prototype of the game with some art pieces was already finished, so it's already included in the prototype. You can see how it's look before adding the visuals and stuff. Like if you are a coder, generally you will use squares to define shapes and so on to test the functionality. So the jump, and you can see there are some problems with the attacks, physics, but this is just a prototype, so to understand is the idea work or not. Is it okay? Does it feel nice? So this is very simple prototype, and it can be simpler. Now we'll move on to the Unreal Engine. You can find the project files in the description with the other information that you might need. First, start the launcher, then go to the Unreal Engine tab, and then launch the project. You can also go to the project and double click it. You need to have at least 4.19 for the project to work. You can have a higher version, but a lower version generally will cause you problems. It will take a little bit of time to start since I'm using a very old laptop. So my name is Amir Suleiman, and I'm a part of Four Nights. We are a team of 5 people. I work as a developer and an artist at the same time. And you can find the link to our website, and there you can find our social networks account where you can see what game we have already done. And we join multiple game jams. If you don't know what a game jam is, it's like a small competition where you're gonna make a game in a limited period of time, like 2 to 3 days to a week, depend on the type of competition. It's so much fun. We participate in 3 or 4 of them each year. It can be a very fun experience and you can learn a lot. So I encourage you to join. You can find a lot of them in itch.io. Now that the project is opened, you can see the editor user interface. There are many tabs and you can move them around. You can change their places, dock them. It gives you an overview of how it will look like after you dock. And you can change the size of it, move them around. If you close them, for example, you can reopen it from the windows in the menu bar. Yeah, in the menu bar you can find the file, edit. File have the typical save, open, new functionalities. It also have a package project which will be used later on to make the .exe file, so you can play the game or let other people play it. There are the edit tab which have paste, copy, and the windows, and finally the help, which is have tutorials that help you understand the engine. You can have tutorials about anything, the basics of the engine, the blueprint, the editor, animation, mobile, whatever you want to learn. It's a very useful resource. The viewport is one of the most important windows. It is where you can see the game, and there are mouse control where you can zoom in by the wheel. You can change the perspective. We are not going to be using here since this is a 2D game. Give you like a 3D view, and you can make the game look like that if you want it to look like that. But this, for our game, we will use the front view. So you can see the game from a different perspective. You can also see used light or not used light, and you can see how, for example, the hitbox and so on, that's used by the physics engine or the primitive shell. So this is the viewport. So you can see that when you select an object, it highlighted in the word outlier. And they are the content browser where you can see the content of the project. Each folder have files on it. Here is the sprite file, the image files, the animation, and so on. There are the blueprint, which is the visual scripting code solution for Unreal. There are the sounds. There are also the levels of the game, which are the game end, level 1, and main menu. And usually you will use the content browser, the viewport, and the outliner the most. There are also the toolbar, which will be used to play the game. Now that we are done with the brief introduction of the editor interface, we will be moving on to the input control. You can access the input from the menu bar under the edit, the tab. you will find the project setting. And under the engine section, you will find input. And under the binding tab, you will find action mapping and access mapping, which act as a tool to bind different input types from your keyboard, mouse, touch, or joysticks, or other type of input to a certain type of event defined by the users. You can do so as following. We'll be recreating this jump action, which is use 3 different key, which are all keyboard inputs. You can add different type depending on your project. So simply gonna delete this and recreate one from the plus that is next to the action mapping tab. Give it a name and then add the keys that you want. In this case, space, W, and up. For the axis mapping, it's the same case. It's just instead of only a key, it have a key and a scale value. And we're gonna be using the scale value to indicate the direction of the movement. So right is positive and left is negative. And once you are done with setting up this input, you can close project setting and you are done with this part. Now that you are done with the input controls, we will move on to the blueprint, which is the visual scripting solution for Unreal Engine. If you don't have the blueprint folder open, you can find it under the content. The name of the folder is blueprint. We will be modifying the character controller. The name of the blueprint is Mahalogic. Double click it. Usually it will be floating window. You can dock it to the editor, just easier to work with. The control for the blueprint is similar to the viewport. It is the middle mouse button will zoom in, zoom out. The right mouse button will open a list with different nodes that you can use. Right with drag will band view. Left click to select. Left click with drag will be used to multi-select. Each block is called node and it have a number of pins with different types. We will add a node to explain how it works. So in this case we have a white arrow, which is the execution pin. It is used to define the flow of the script. And we have pins that have different types. It's also color coded. And if we left click and drag, we can connect nodes together. As you can see, there are a white line that connecting the two arrows, which is the execution order. So this node will be executed first, then this node, and so on. So if we have a third one, also we can connect it to be executed third and so on. And the color coding of the pins, you can see that this float will connect to this float, and also it can connect to this float. You can group node by selecting multi-select them and then click C, which will group them together. It will make it easier to control them, move them around. And also you can disconnect pins by Alt, then clicking. Alt and click will disconnect the nodes. And also if you double click anywhere in the wire, it will add a pin that help you control the flow of the line, the direction of the line. This is the basics of the blueprint. Now we'll be moving to the movement script. And for the movement script, we can see that the game right now you cannot move, you cannot jump, and we will be adding this functionality. So first we will be adding the input event, which is movement. We have already defined that in the input control. So you can find it under input, axis event, movement. Then we will connect this to a branch, which is this. We're not going to be explaining a lot about those other nodes in this introduction, but this node is responsible of making sure that the player cannot move until the character is selected, so he just don't fall off a cliff or edge while he cannot see it. And then we will add a node called add movement input, which is responsible of the character movement, and we can define the direction of the movement based on the axis value as we defined it before, as positive is moving to the right and negative is moving to the left. We simply connect the axis value to the scale value. We can see also that they have the same color, and give it a value in the axis that we want it to move, which is the x-axis. And then connect execution. So if the character is selected, it is true, the player can start moving, else it will do nothing. And now we can see the character can move left and right, but there are no animation, and also the character face is only facing one direction, it doesn't flip. So first we will solve the problem of the animation, which is by introducing an animation node, and it is a custom function that it is a little bit long to explain in this introduction, so we'll explain it in a different tutorial where I will explain all the script that I have done in this game. It will be a few months later. I will upload it to the same channel. So now we will connect this to the nodes that are responsible for animation. And now the character should be able to show the animation. Now you can see it move. But it still cannot rotate the face. So now it is just animated. And now we will add the rotation. To explain what exactly we are doing, we can see that for this actor, if we rotate it 180 on the z-axis, it will look to the other direction, and that's exactly what we're gonna do, but we're just gonna do it through a script, so that every time the player will click the left button, it will rotate the character controller to the other side. To do that, we will be adding compare float node, which will compare the value that we are getting from the axis movement input, and simply we will connect the axis value to the to the input. Connect execution, and now we will compare the input we have with 0. So if it is bigger than 0, it should be facing right, and if it's less than 0, it will be facing left. This is a Boolean value, so it can be either true or false. So is it facing right? It's true when it's bigger than 0, and it is false when it's less than 0. These two nodes are used by the animation. Now we will need to get a character controller. Simply write get controller. And now we need to set the rotation of this controller. So we just write set control rotation. And we can connect execution. So don't forget this later. And to decide which rotation that it should have, use a make rotator. For the facing right, we don't need to change anything. So the rotation should be as its default value 0. But for the left, it should be rotated by 180 on the Z. And now the character should be able to rotate. So as you can see now, we can rotate. We still cannot jump. So for the jump, we're gonna be doing the same thing. You can remember that from the input control, we defined an event called jump, which was under the action event. And you can see that it have different states, which is pressed when you press the button and release when you release it. So we want this event to happen when the player pressed, so it's easier. Release make it harder to play the game. So you're gonna just connect it to the branch, which make sure that it's already selected, and then the arrow node to play a sound when the character jump, and finally the jump action, and it is a built-in node, also named jump, but this one is under the character tab. Now like that, the jump should be already working. So yeah, W, up, space, all of them are working. Now if we want to change some property of this jump, if you want it to jump very high or very low, you can adjust that. Here and there are components. You can go down to the character movement and it will show you a lot of different properties. We will be interested in the jump Z velocity. The more value this parameter is, the higher the jump. So if we change it to like 1000, now the jump will be very high. So you can see you can jump very high. And you can choose this value depending on what type of game you are creating. For us, 600 is okay, so you cannot jump very high. It's good enough for most of the jumps that we have. And their air control, you can change this value between 0 and 1. And 0 means that you cannot control the player while you are jumping. You see here, if you jump you cannot go back, but in the previous case, where we have that at 0.8 or 1, you can see the you can jump. You can control your character while you are in air, which is a nice feature. So you can change this value depending on your preference, personal preference, per project. So the last thing we're gonna change is gravity. This is define how fast the character will be falling. So if we put this at 5, for example, you can see that the character is hardly jumping because there are so much. We have 5 times the gravity, so its jump is not so effective. So if we make this at half with the same jump velocity, we will have a very strong jump. And it will be slowly going down. So if you can notice, it's taking a while to reach the ground. So the player can jump for a very long time. While if you increase it to 5, you barely can jump. Change these values depend on what you want. There are also other values you can play around and see what effect they give you. So you can always read the documentation for the blueprint or other part of the engine. You have you can just click and under the help, it will show you the documentation. To explain to you all the node that is there, explain to you how everything works. You can also use YouTube videos. And now finally we'll just build this game so you can run it and play it. Now that you are done with the blueprint, you can close it. Go to the file, then package project. We did not specify any touch input, so we do not use the Android. Everything we build can work in other platform, but for now we're gonna use the Windows. Should work. It might not work. There are some stuff that you need to change for other platforms, but for Windows it should work fine. And now it should ask you where you want to save it. We'll simply save it to let's say documents. It will take a while to build the game, and then you can play it. There are other stuff that you can do to specify the building configuration. It is under build configuration is the development or ship it. The difference. You can also see the comment that we had in the site, the blue comment, which you don't want in the final building, so you should change this to shipping. And also there are packaging settings like the icons and language and stuff that you want to adjust for the final build. You can do that from project configuration. You can see there a lot of options. And for now we are not going to explain that, but you can also read the documentation to understand. But for now the default is okay. You can just wait for this to finish. You can see it have Windows. No, editor is the folder. You can change all this stuff in the editor, but we are not going to cover that. The name of the game is Maha Project. Double click it and you can play the game. You can see the comments. It is because of this development build. You don't want that blue lines to show up, so you generally will get the setting to the shipping. And yeah, that is it. Thank you for watching, and see you in future tutorials.